Let's touch on something in my last video about the conversation about the big three, the big four, the big whatever, right? One thing that I did mention, we lost very prominent stars at a very young age. And I wonder if the conversations about the big three and all of this would be different. Like, would Drake, Kendrick, Cole have the mainstream longevity they've had if we didn't lose Pop Smoke, XXX, Juice World, Lil Peep, King Von, Lil Snoop? A lot of people we lost way too early 20s, some of them teenagers, right? Maybe the whole scope of hip hop looks different. What I mean is, go back to the 90s. We lost Pac at 25. We lost Biggie at 23. You see what they were able to do, and they were basically kids. Like, we like to say, your prefrontal lobe, frontal lobe, whatever, cortex, don't even finish developing until you're 25. So think about it. As much of a crash out as someone like Pac was, he was a child. He was a grown man, but he still was a child. In the scope of life, it's a child. Biggie, even more so, at 23 years old. They were allowed to, though, get that level of success and mainstream appeal before they left. I don't feel like Pop Smoke dies before he releases his first album. You don't even get to have no involvement in what that looks like, right? Juice World, we see, put out quite a few projects. But what if somebody like that is able to overcome addiction maybe at 23, 24 years old? What does his music start to sound like? What if XXX, who was obviously a conflicted individual, reminds me a lot of Tupac? What if he gets the opportunity to sit down with somebody who can mentor him and just mellows out a little bit? Isn't so quick to go off and all the FUs and wanting to fight the whole world and all of this stuff. You know, what if the people that were around him and loved him didn't try to sue him for everything he had, and he didn't have to sit in jail while, like Pop did, when he has the #1 record in the country? You know, what if we don't lose Lil Peep and Mac Miller to accidental overdoses, right? I feel like Mac was about to revolutionize independent artistry, and he didn't get a chance to do that. Lil Peep obviously was very influential in the modern emo rap genre. What if he was able to show people, hey, there's something on the other side of all this depression and these self-harming tendencies? There's light on the other side, right? You see a little bit of that with the S Boys from Louisiana. I think one of them found the Lord, and they still make the music they make, but you can kind of tell like it's a lot more tame than what it was. It's more mature. But they're one of few who are able to come in the game as one thing and change while still maintaining. Like, they're kind of, it's such a crazy comparison. But I look at the S Boys as kind of on a similar path of the Clips, where, hey, we're still rapping about a lot of the same stuff, but you can tell it's from a more healed perspective, right? Point being, though, I do feel as though if we don't lose these artists at such a young age, maybe the whole scope of music looks different. Because these weren't just rappers that were popping at however old they were. These were the next faces of an entire generation. And a whole generation just repeatedly, a whole entire generation just repeatedly lost the heads of an entire movement, right? Like, even though my generation lost Pop, lost Big, and I was a child, so maybe the generation before me, Gen X, loses Pop, loses Big L, loses Scott LaRock, he loses all of these people. It's still like hip hop is still trying to gain its footing, right? But by the time 2017 comes around, we're here, it's here to stay. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a teenager. Like, the equivalent of that would be like losing Kid Cudi after he made Man on the Moon. That would be, for my generation, it would be the equivalent of that. Because Kid Cudi changed so much for people my age. He was not the first, but he made talking about your mental health cool. Not just I'm talking about it. You know, Wayne had a couple songs where that was clearly his thing, but he made it cool to do so. You imagine if Cudi passes after Man on the Moon, what that would mean for our generation? Can you imagine if Kanye passes after 808s? Could you imagine if an artist like Eminem passes away after Eminem show? And what that would have did? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean, that everything would be different. Everything would be different. These were young, talented dudes, bro. And Eminem was on the older side when he did Eminem show, but point being, what that impact. Same with Kanye 808s. Actually, Cudi was a little bit older too. We didn't really, in my opinion, we didn't really have a whole lot of young people that achieved the success of the young people of today, you know? And I mean young, like 25 and younger. We didn't really have a lot of that. You know, Kendrick might have been like 24 when he dropped Good Kid, Mad City, for example. You imagine if he passes after he drops that album? Cole might have been about the same age when he dropped Sideline Story. Now, probably a little bit older. But, like, just imagine that. Drake drops So Far Gone and then overdoses. That would be insane. That would be insane. So I say all that to say, I do agree and do feel that as a result, the older generation is now being appreciated more. Because where do you look to when your shining stars are gone and everybody's trying to sound like them and everybody's competing to be this versus trying to progress, right? Two things happen. People that had success lost it, or lost some relevancy, lost some steam, and then got it back. Lloyd Banks, 38 Special, Rock Marcy, Alchemist, them type people. Though they're now regaining some fame. And then there's another lane where people that stayed true to this and it just took them a while to get to that point. Your Freddie Gibbs, your Griseldas, your, I don't even know, like in that realm, those people are now super successful. Then you have this other sect of like the younger millennials that have just always been dope, and people are just finding out how dope they are. Your Jids, your Mick Jenkins, your Sabas, your them type people. Now they're starting to see more success. Like, you see what's happening. There's like this middle area of like okay, these are people around my age. I don't really identify with them, or I do, but there's so many of them, there's no figureheads, right? So they look to the previous generation and I rock with this stuff over here. I like this. Or they're looking down, and that's how you get some of the really young cats right now that's popping. I don't know who Two Hollis is. I don't know who Quadeca is and what their level of success is and all this stuff, but I hear their names a lot. So I know people are reaching down to the young cats to find something, but it's just something to be said, man. I hadn't fully fleshed out my thoughts, so maybe we can have some discourse in the comments, man. As always, bro, it should be links to the Discord in the description. Hop in there. Let's have some conversations. Let's leave some comments in the YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. You know all the stuff I'm obligated to say. Y'all been real. I've been DOLLAWATER. Peace.